Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about anxiety and how often we are the cause of our own anxiety, and how fear shapes our behavior even when there's no real threat or danger. Sometimes the fear that we feel isn't coming from what's actually happening, it's coming from what we think is happening or what might happen. That gap between reality and our assumptions is where anxiety thrives. I want to tell you two quick stories that happened this week that really inspired this video. So, I like to take my cat out in the spring and summer months to the park, and she's not really a fan of being outside. So, I often put her on a leash, even though she doesn't really go anywhere. But just in case, soon as I put the leash on, even though she's walked these floors in this apartment a million times, she is so still. She's frozen. She can't move. She becomes so scared and fearful and anxious. And I try to calm her down. I'll pet her. I'll try to give her a treat or something. And she won't take it. She doesn't care for my affection. She's just completely still. And that's before we even go outside. It's because she knows what's going to happen, or at least she thinks she knows what's happening next. And I wasn't even controlling the leash. Like, she could roam freely. There was no real danger, and yet her brain just shut down, even in her comfortable environment. But just having that leash on her changed her behavior completely. So during the same week, my little brother was home, and I was working from home that day, and he forgot. And I was making noise in the kitchen and just doing things out here. And he thought that there were workers in our suite because workers were supposed to come by. And he didn't want to have a social interaction with them. So he stayed in his room for 2 hours thinking that the workers were here when it was really just me. And it just made me think back to my cat and just how our behavior can change even in our own environments, even our own comfort, just by the idea of a threat of danger. And of course, in this case, it's more like social anxiety. But it just made me think, like, even as animals, as humans, we all can be fearful of the unknown, and a lot of our fear comes from a lack of information. Like, nothing was physically stopping him, but mentally he felt trapped, or he felt like he didn't want to come out. And obviously it wasn't really that serious. He did come out eventually and check, but it's just the idea, and it's something we all do on some scale. It just got me thinking, how often do we do this? How often do we feel overwhelmed and trapped and anxious, and not because of what's real, but because of the stories that we've made up in our minds? This video today is about that, how fear creeps in when we don't have all the information, how anxiety takes root in uncertainty. Not knowing is not the same as being unsafe. Sometimes we're just conditioned that way. And like my cat, we just need more exposure and to be a little bit more curious. Think about how this shows up in your life. Think about all the things that you want to do, that you think about, or even you say you are going to do, but you don't do because of that fear, because of that anxiety, because of the fear of worst case scenario. Think about how we all put ourselves on an invisible leash. Maybe you want to post videos. Maybe you want to put your talents out there or start your own business, start dating again. Who knows? Whatever it is, you have to stop imagining worst case scenarios and just lean into the unknown. Lean into your own curiosity of the possibilities of what could happen for you, of things that could go your way. Or maybe, like my brother, you assume that something negative is happening and you don't really want to confront it, so you hide. We have to reframe and empower ourselves. We have to ask the hard questions. And what would happen if I moved through fear anyways? What if I wasn't letting the leash stop me? Sometimes the things that we're afraid of is just a story in our heads. The freedom that we want is actually available to us if we're able to see the bigger picture and get out of the lens of fear. We have to recognize that the leash isn't real. So today, I encourage you to check in with yourself. Are you acting trapped when you're actually free? Are you limiting yourself? Is there something you're avoiding just because it's uncomfortable? And if so, what is one small move to move out of that fear? Don't let your mind play tricks on you, and don't fill in the gaps of information you don't know with assumptions and your own fears. Fill it with information. Just look a little deeper for information. Ask the hard questions. Educate yourself. And recognize when fear is driving your behaviors. And learning to spot when your reaction is rooted in fear is a huge self awareness and mindfulness practice. Ask yourself, what do I know for sure? What is actually factual? Because if you can separate fear from fact, you can stop feeding your anxiety. Fear isn't always a sign that something bad is happening. Sometimes it's something good that's happening. And I know I do this in so many ways in my life, big and small, but it just reminded me of when I was a kid and I used to be so afraid of getting up to go to the bathroom at night, or even just like to get a snack, or to, go upstairs with the lights fully off because I was so scared that a monster or a ghost was going to chase behind me, or they were going to grab me out of my bed. And I would let that fear keep me from getting out of my bed every single night, even when I really had to pee. And I just think, again, on a small scale, that's just another way of how we just let these beliefs, these self limiting beliefs, these conditioned beliefs rule our lives. And a lot of us aren't even aware of it. And if this hit home for you and you've ever felt like you put yourself on an invisible leash and you've let fear or anxiety stop you from doing things that you would like to do, I would love to hear about it in the comments. So please just let me know below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.